early Quakers historically were known as truth tellers. They were publishers of truth, they had a testimony of integrity, they spoke truth to power. And I wonder, considering a Pendle Hill pamphlet from African American Quaker scholar activist Harold D. Weaver Jr., I wonder, what if Quakers also spoke truth to themselves and about themselves? What if we were able to acknowledge the truth, not just of our history, but also of our present practice? For instance, E.D. Hudson, a Quaker abolitionist, wrote back in 1841 for the National Anti-Slavery Standard that with few exceptions, professed friends are careful to bear their testimony against anti-slavery. I don't know if you caught that, but even though Quakers, more than 100 years before the Civil War, gave up slavery, there were still many, maybe even a majority, who were against the anti-slavery movement. They saw it potentially as too political. They maybe also thought that slavery was a necessary social evil. Hudson continues, at their yearly meeting in Ohio and Indiana, with the exception of some heretical George Fox friends, they ordered anti-slavery to be turned out of their meeting houses and faithfully warned their young members to carefully avoid its contaminating influence. Weaver goes on to write that Hudson wasn't the only Quaker abolitionist at the time who recognized the failings of Quakers when it came to abolition. Many abolitionist friends found obstacles in their way when attempting to spread the word about the anti-slavery movement. New England abolitionist William Bassett spoke out against New England Yearly Meeting, which had pronounced in 1837 that any members who refused to obey the meeting's advice and who continued to host abolitionist lectures or who otherwise brought up the subject before meetings for worship would be disowned from the meeting. Today, looking back on our history, we can be proud of what Quakers accomplished in their work to abolish chattel slavery here in the United States. But we have to be willing to acknowledge the truth. It's complicated. Even though Quakers as a whole came around, Quakers as a whole, for most of their history, were on the wrong side. I wonder what we might be on the wrong side of today. Who we might be somehow accomplices in hurting, in causing suffering for. I wonder what issues today we haven't quite worked out in our own hearts or in our community. And I wonder what we might free ourselves from if we become people who are able not just to speak truth to power, but to speak truth to and about ourselves as well. God, please help us to be honest.